Welcome to the Capacity Podcast, protecting the leader behind the performance. This is not a burnout podcast. This is where we break down the real reason high-performing leaders start to decline, even when everything on the outside still looks great and successful. Because leadership just is not about output. It's about capacity behind the output. Your ability to think clearly and to regulate your emotions and to sound decisions under pressure. And when the capacity starts to weaken, your leadership starts to disappear, okay? And when it starts to disappear, it distorts. You become more reactive and you become less patient and you are more mentally fatigued than you have ever been before, which now explains why taking a vacation or getting a good night's rest is no longer working for you. And on the opposite side of that, what you've done before in your earlier days of your career by pushing harder, you're finding that pushing harder now in your tenure is not giving you the same results because your capacity is totally different at this point. And we as leaders, we have to understand that as we evolve in our career, as we evolve in our life, as we evolve in our age, there has to be changes that are necessary. And therefore, over a period of time, this shows up in how we lead. Now, before we go any further, I want you to know that this is not medical advice. This is educational advice and for the purpose of helping you to understand yourself better in order to perform better. So let's continue. When we talk about the shift that you don't notice, meaning what is becoming distorted and what is disappearing in your leadership, we really want to know what's happening, okay? And most high performers, they don't wake up and say, I want to become an irritable leader, right? You don't go into the office or do your hybrid work or do your work from your home office to say, today, I'm going to be an irritated leader. No, it doesn't work that way. We are not intentional about being stoic or mean or cultivating an unhealthy work environment. No, this is not intentional. And what is happening is as we are slowly having capacity injuries, we are then slowly having changes in our perspective. And our perspective is starting to distort our thinking. And the distortion of our thinking creates scenarios that leads to higher levels of irritability in this example, but in overall higher levels of the inability to take on, to do, to hear, to talk, meetings, etc., the way that we had in the past. And that's what this is all about. This is why this is a capacity issue. It's not that it's a deliberate thing. It's not that you are doing it intentionally, and it is not that you are doing it consciously. That's why it's considered a distortment, because these things are happening from the inside. You're thinking, you're feeling, you're behaving to the output that is now showing in your performance. This is what you got to understand. All right? And once you understand this, that it gradually happens, then you'll start understanding where the pressure is coming from. A lot of people talk about burnout. That includes me. Yes, I work with high achieving performers on burnout recovery. And I also help them to even go past that point of now identifying how I can have capacity for a long period of time. And really, if I break that down, is what are the plans? How do I identify schedules? How do I sort my life out In order for this to work, for everything to be completed, for me to be happy, sorted out, and balanced. But let's move forward to talk about this gradual concept of the leader's capacity weakening and or the capacity injury. Now, when we think about an injury, we can visualize someone who has broken their arm because the arm doesn't function the same, and nor does it function the same without the support of a cast. Think about this. So, if a physical injury causes the inability to perform the same, but yet the healing process is a cast, then how do I look at this from an internal point of view where the injuries are not visible? These are silent injuries. These are silent wounds, and therefore you can now understand how they arise unconsciously. You're not intentionally injuring your work performance, your life, your thinking process and pattern. So when you start with pressure, this means more responsibility, more decisions, more people depending on you. That's what pressure, how that comes about. And because you're capable, you can handle it. But you remember me sharing with you is as we grow older, as we grow in our leadership, we also have to evolve in how much we can hold or handle. And when we think that our same capacity, the space we have to do it all, is the same when we first started off when we were 20 and now we're 50, you got another thing coming. That's just not logical. I just want you to sit on that. Ask yourself, is it logical for me to perform, to do, to go the same way where I have less energy, more things to think about and handle, and the list goes on and on. So what you decide to do is, because this is how you've been operating, this is how you have identified your internal performance system, you choose not to focus on that because that's a skill set of awareness. And a lot of times these things are not conscious until you are taught to pay attention to these things. But you decide to push yourself even further, push yourself even harder. You show up more, you deliver, or you try to deliver more, but you know in your mind that it's not the same quality. Now, I know some may say, well, what are you talking about? I'm showing up well. Okay, but know this, there's no one fits all. And number two, that when your capacity is distorted, when you have a capacity injury, remember the example of the arm, but you cannot see this. When you have decision fatigue, these are injuries, capacity injuries. When you cannot think clearly or fast like you had in the past, then you've got to take a look at the real and exercise your ability and this skill set to know exactly how to fix this. You can't go on the same way. So here's what you don't realize. You don't realize that every demand is pulling from the same place. That's you. Every demand is pulling from the same place. Your internal capacity. So when people call you, when vendors call you, when bills come through, when clients or customers come through, when employees are asking what, ... when you go home, your husband is pulling on you, your children are pulling on you, your friends, your community are pulling on you, they are all coming, the pull is all coming from the internal capacity. how much you have left to give. So you've already worked 8, 10, 12 hours in your leadership department, your business, and now you're being pulled on again. And this is what you really have to understand, because the understanding of this doesn't dilute who you are or your ability to give, but what it does, it gives you consciousness towards the question, how can I preserve? That's what this is really about. Because if you could preserve every single day, then every day leads to the next day of preservation. And now here there's a long span of time, longevity. We're not trying to have longevity just for a decade. We're not trying to have longevity for just 12 years. We're not trying to have longevity, ... We are trying to have longevity for as long as we choose to be in our career. This is what you must think about. So the parts that I want you to think about are the concepts of your mental bandwidth, the emotional regulation. How do I control my emotions during this pressure period? And even beyond the pressure period, even if I'm feeling okay, how do I have a system of controlling my emotions? Because the way that I feel internally, if I'm pressured, if I'm distorted, if I can't think clearly, if it takes me a long time to make decisions, if I just don't have the energetic means to answer the phone, if I don't have the energetic means to go through the emails, you get my point. And I feel it because I've been there, done that, and over again. So the question becomes, how do I understand my nervous system? How do I regulate it so that I can be at peace? Power, catch this now, power without peace is nothing. Because peace is everything, and you have to manage your peace. You have to control what's coming in and what's going out that may affect your peace. But I digress, because that's one aspect that I teach about, cultivating peace. Let's move on. And so when the system is overloaded long enough, we're talking about prolonged periods of time. How do I bring that in context to you? As leaders, we are used to sitting on stress. Sometimes you know you're stressed. Sometimes you don't know you're stressed. But stress can continue for months and months and even years, ironically. Now, I've been in my field for 30 years. And it's amazing to me how people do not acknowledge nor understand their feelings. And when you don't understand those things, then really you begin to lock in a storage of emotions that are not clear to you. But those emotions are not silent. They are acting out. Well, what do you mean? In your thinking pattern. You can start being a person who has positive thinking and then slowly erode to being a person who has negative thinking. Feeling upset in the inside, and whether you behave it out by cussing or fussing at somebody, it is still moving. Why? Because now you have negative thinking. And negative thinking goes right along with anxiety and depression. But I digress. Because we think, because we've built so much success, that we are not, or rather, we don't need to check into our persons. Now, I wasn't intending on saying these things, but I think it's very important. You know, I work a lot with, again, high-performing VPs of hospitals, aviation executives, doctors. The list goes on and on. So here is what I'm wanting you to really understand as I move forward is that the system prolongs stress, the thing that you're used to, the thing that you ride on like it's a chariot, and figure everything out because you are so pressured, but you don't know what's really going on. It doesn't shut you down at first. Let's look at this. Why doesn't it shut you down? Because you've been sitting with it for a very long time. It doesn't shut you down because you are skilled at what you do. You know what you have to do, at what time you got to do, and how long you have to do it. You understand? So there's a difference between habitual skills that you set up to know how to produce. So let's go ahead and put that on the side. That's why it seemed like you are right. But when you check in with yourself, how many times do you sigh sitting at your desk? How many times do you have anxious triggers? All right. Moving on. Taking a look at my notes to see where I left off. So when we talk about it doesn't shut you down, I'm really saying that it just starts to leak. Now I have a cup here and it's full of coffee. If I take a sip, and I'm able to drink it without any leaks, any pouring, then this could represent that there's no capacity issues. But what if I drink and I let it come out of the cup and it becomes a leak? Is that something that's big enough to pay attention to? Not necessarily. So we see a couple of drops there. Not necessarily. It's easy to bypass that. It's easy to say, oh, that's I can just wipe that off. Now, while this analogy is not truly what is going on with you internally, it's still something that you can see and propose in your mind to be able to come up with thoughts about this particular point of view. Now let's talk a little bit more about irritability, because irritability is not random. No, it's not random. It is data. That's supposed to be, and I don't know what, but it's data. It's a signal that something is happening. It's what happens when your system is no longer spacious. It doesn't have room. If there's a suitcase and you've piled it all up in that corner to corner, but you left out one piece and you need to find room for this piece, you're trying to do everything in your power to put that one piece in the suitcase rather than having to get another suitcase, because another suitcase on an airline flight will cost you more than what the piece of clothing is even worth, possibly. So you say, why should I pay $50, $25 for another bag when I can just roll this up, try to find space, but it can't get in there. Okay, let me roll it and then fold it. Still can't get in there. Okay, well, let me lay it flat and try to figure out ways to get it in here. And this is how leaders solely create weak environments. And it's, again, not intentional, but now is becoming systematic because it is what you are now manifesting as a result of your capacity injury. So let's kind of wrap this to help you to understand that you're not too much and you're not losing your edge, because your skills are your skills, okay? Your system is just telling you that something very specific is happening and your capacity needs to be repaired and protected. Because leadership longevity is not built on how hard you push. It's built on how well your system can sustain pressure. And without breaking down your clarity, your calm, and your communication, this is what makes the difference between you having high capacity versus low capacity. And the low capacity is what is leading to the injuries, the signals, the manifestations of what's happening. That's causing performance and your internal bandwidth to weaken. So there's a difference between high performance as well as sustainable leadership. This is the whole point. There's a difference. And once you know that there's a difference, the consciousness grows and things begin to repair, because there are actions that you're putting in place in which those things are necessary to know, to practice, to implement, and to even include in your standards, your operating systems for your company, your leadership department. In other words, you put things in place to support you and your team's capacity. So the next time you feel yourself feeling irritable, don't dismiss it, don't justify it, diagnose it. Because irritability is often the first visible signal. I'm going to say that again. Irritability is oftentimes the first visible signal that your capacity is under strain, it's pressured, it's injured, it's no longer functioning the same. And so over a period of time, disconnection takes place, poor decisions happen, and eventually there's going to be a collapse. And this collapse is where you're just mentally exhausted. You cannot get it together no matter how much you try. You can't push harder anymore. And you actually feel like just throwing in the towel because you just need to preserve yourself. You just need to fix yourself. And I have been there. When I think about this from an analogy point of view, I feel like a person who is physically injured and they're just crawling on the floor trying to get help. That's where my realization took place. And so I did a very drastic thing. I closed all of my clinics, laid off the staff, and I went home. I'll share my story in another podcast. So if you can relate to any of the things that I've stated today, and you're starting to see how your capacity is impacting your leadership, I want you to join my newsletter. It's in the bio. Click it, join it. You join for free. And what I do is I share result producing strategies, performance cognitive reviews. What does that mean? I talk about things that get you to think so your consciousness of capacity can be more alert and aware, for you to put things in place to practice. So I provide practical applications that help you in your everyday performance to start healing your capacity. Not only that, then I break down psychology of leadership capacity, how to protect it, how to manage it, how to sustain your performance, because your capacity is strong when you decide to pay attention to it, to build it back up. Capacity is no different than your physical muscles and building those up. Again, because in order to build physical muscles, you have to have certain things in place every single day or multiple times a week to break down that muscle to repair it. So what do you think that you have to do in concert to your internal capacity? It's already starting to break down. So now you got to find ways to repair it. And so being a part of the newsletter, you'll be the first ones to get content that will help you. You'll also get exclusive content as well that nobody else can have. And lasting, is what we're wanting to do. Thank you for joining me for the podcast. Share, like, subscribe, and send it to other leaders to whom you believe that could benefit from this particular information. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you in the next episode.